This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
This table is really tilted.
Excuse me? Am I gonna get a chance to speak?
Maybe I should take that back.
Denied. Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Take a giant step for mankind.
Welcome to the Tilted Table with your hosts, Sean and Joe.
I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
I dig it.
All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I am Sean Landon Clark.
And I am Joey Joe, the Fracky Mac.
Yes, and today we are going to dive into...
It's a good one.
This is a really good one. Into clothing fashions that came and went... And I don't know the parameters of this. I'm going to allow Joe to explain.
Yeah, and I think this is part of like your and my personal story. So like these days, people have an Instagram profile, social media, and it kind of defines like their swag, the way they are. You're looking for content, post pictures of where you've been. Like that's kind of the thing that people do these days. But back in the 80s and 90s, when you and I were growing up and finding our own way, like it, obviously, clearly that didn't exist. But it was all about your fashion, your shoes, what kind of bag do you have? Is that, what's the latest trend? And, going to the mall, hanging out at the mall, what's, Body Glove dropping new bags and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I just thought it'd be really fun to take another trip down memory lane, but do it in the way that, personal fashion choices that maybe we would have had. Like one of the things I really respect about you is how you were advocating for them to bring back wearing like Lycra or shorts with denim.
I don't recall doing this.
Yes. Spandex and denim needs to make a comeback, kind of like Andre Agassi at Wimbledon.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what you were pushing for.
Well, I'm going to say that it must have been another Sean you were talking to, and I think this was me. When you pitched this to me, I took it a bit differently. I was thinking more about clothing brands that at one point may have been the style, and now they're long gone. Where you're talking more about just general fashion.
I mean, we can do that too. It's kind of like one of the things I have up on my screen right now, and this is something that I was never allowed to have. If my mom caught me even looking in the general direction of this T-shirt, that was grounds for punishment on its own. Do you remember Big Johnson T-shirts?
I do. I do remember Big Johnson T-shirts. I don't remember seeing a ton of them though, but I do remember them.
Yeah. See, it's like all of the Where's Waldo type graphic arts and everything.
Yeah, I do remember those being popular. Yeah,
and they still sell them.
Of course, most of the stuff I think we're going to talk about, you can still find them. Mm-hmm. It's just where you find them. I think a lot of times you'll find them at Ross and Marshall and other discount retailers.
Amazon, baby.
Well, yeah, you can find everything on Amazon. That's for damn sure. So, when you're talking about Big Johnson T-shirts, the first thing that comes to my mind that was really popular, I think it was mostly girls wore this. I don't remember guys wearing it. Was Bongo.
Oh man, that's a walk down memory lane. I don't thought about that in like 30-something years.
Yeah,
do they exist?
I don't know if they still do. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. And the reason I'm saying this, and I'll give you an example of something that blows my mind. When I was in high school, Stussy was super popular.
For sure. And it's still popular.
And kids at where I teach still wear a lot of Stussy. I don't know how it survived. I think it disappeared for a while because it seemed like it was gone for a long time. And
it did
come back.
And then it's made a huge comeback. I think Sean Stussy did a collab, I want to say in the last 2 years with Christian Dior. Like it's not just back, it's back.
Okay. Yeah, so when I say Bongo, is Bongo still around? I would assume it might be somewhere. I think I'm going to go with how I think beer often is kind of traded and turned around and still sold. Like Pabst Blue Ribbon used to be kind of like the Budweiser of the 40s and 50s.
Right.
And I think when other beer came in and maybe it was losing ground or whatever the thing was with Pabst, it was losing its customer base. A bigger company just bought them, and now they just own the brand, and they still put the beer out. It's not Pabst, but it's still Pabst, right?
It's basically like acid wash jeans in their heyday, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, these things still exist. I'm assuming Bongo still exists, but whatever Bongo was when it was at the height of its popularity, it's probably owned by some Chinese company that just pumps out garbage-ass T-shirts, and I guess they make a profit.
What's the other one along that same line was Z Cavarici?
I was on my list. I was going to put Cavarici out there. I had a friend that would buy these jeans, and this is 1990. They were $70.
That was big money back then.
Yeah, that's when $70 was worth $70 fucking dollars.
It's like half a gold brick.
And it was like a big thing, and it was huge. And I mean, people claimed it's like these are the designer jeans of designer jeans. And you would assume it would have stayed around, but it disappeared really quick.
It disappeared in like 45 days.
Yeah, well, I'll give it a little bit longer than that. But I remember a friend of mine called me up because we had this just goes back to some old stupid story from high school, but we had a friend that was obsessed with designer clothes. And he had Cavaricis, and he would brag about, like, my pants cost more than your entire outfit. Now, we were a bunch of metalhead, hard rock guys, so we were wearing band T-shirts and Levi's jeans and, high-top tennis shoes, so nothing on us was really expensive.
Right.
And a friend of mine in that group, this is probably about 15 years ago, he was shopping at TJ Maxx or Ross or one of those places with his kids, buying a bunch of cheap clothes because kids will run through these clothes real quick. And he calls me up. He's all, dude, I'm over at Ross and I found a pair of Z Cavarici pants. I'm like, what? He's like, I swear to God, they're like $10.
They look so hideous too.
Yeah, they were terrible.
Bad.
So all this did for me is confirm how much clothing, retail clothing is probably the most overpriced nonsense. So when something gets hot for whatever reason, even if it's well made and it's got nice material, it's still not worth $70 because when the fad dies out or the brand dies out for whatever reason, this stuff can be sold for $10.
For sure.
It probably costs them $2 to fucking make these things.
Oh, for sure. And it's kind of like a great example of something being super expensive, and I go so far as to say more than just a novelty. Do you remember hypercolor T-shirts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about hypercolor T-shirts.
I mean, when that came out, nobody had ever seen anything like that before.
Yeah, my friend Kevin bought one, and they lasted, I think, about 3 washes. And then the change of people don't know what this is. These are shirts that were kind of, I would say they're like quasi kind of tie-dyed looking shirts. They would be blue.
They had a color changing effect depending on the temperature.
Yeah, so if you could put your hands on it and your handprint would turn pink on the shirt because the heat. But the problem with hypercolor was, once you washed the shirt so many times, it lost whatever
the elasticity within the fibers or something.
Yeah, so it wouldn't work anymore. But the other thing that people found out, and this is the hilarious part of this shirt, was that the commercials look cool. This guy would be wearing like a blue shirt, and a bunch of girls would put their hands on his on his chest, and they pull it off, and the pink handprints on it, and would turn back to blue, and it looked all super cool. The heat made it change color. But it also means when you were in the dead of summer and you started sweating in your pits, you get these pink pits.
It's terrible.
It's horrible.
Well, and the side effect too is you'd body glove someone where you'd walk up to them and just smack them as hard as you could with your hand and leave that handprint.
Yeah,
like in the actual T-shirt fabric. That's fantastic. And I Googled that and I'm like, that's 2 mouse clicks away from being delivered tomorrow.
Yeah, you mean you can still buy them?
You can.
I was gonna say, and when we were talking about Bongo, I was gonna. That's what popped in my head was hypercolor. I was thinking like, well, Bongo can still be around, but I know hypercolor has to be long gone. Guess not.
It is not.
Is it hypercolor?
It's hypercolor.
Okay, so it's that brand.
That's the brand.
Okay, so again, I'm assuming whoever originally owned it sold it to somebody, and they're probably just making cheap versions of the shirt. I guess obviously they must still sell to a certain extent.
Yeah. Well, another thing that they still sell, and I am guilty of actually within the last 3 years buying 2 pairs of these, and I will say there was alcohol involved in these choices. Jinko jeans.
Yeah, Jinko.
And apparently they're making a comeback.
Those are the dumbest pants ever made.
Hey, if you need to,
what was the other one? Diesel?
There was Diesel, there was Caffeine, but Jinko, that's the one. Like if you need to house a family of 12, like you just buy 1 pair of pants.
It's like
It's like 50 pounds of denim.
When was that popular? Like mid to late 90s? Isn't that the sort of,
Mid late 90s.
Yeah, so that was like that sort of that new metal era. It seemed like everybody that listened to like Limp Bizkit was wearing those pants.
Yeah, it's kind of like early rave culture, like acid rave culture.
Yeah, they're just like big ass. If you wanted to look like you were a toddler wearing adult pair of jeans, that's what it looked like.
It's funny. So I actually, like I say, I have 2 pairs of them. And the other day I pulled out a pair. It's a picture I sent you on text message.
Yeah, I saw that. And I was like, what the fuck is he wearing?
It took me all about 5 minutes to get situated just to like the legs to stand, because it was like I was sweeping the entire living room floor walking around in those.
Yeah,
God forbid there's a water puddle that you need to get
Oh,
across.
shit. Although if you fell off of like a building, it would probably parachute out.
100%, man.
Save your life.
Yeah, 100%. You know that on our last episode talking about the Nopes and Travis Pastrana jumping out of an airplane with no parachute. Man, if he was rocking Jinkos, he would have just like cruised down to planet Earth.
Yeah, he would have been fine.
And he probably would have got a sponsorship deal.
And again, I'm just going to hold that those are the dumbest jeans ever made. No one has topped how stupid. I used to think bell bottoms were like the worst pants I'd ever seen. And then Jinkos came out.
So you're saying like next time we all go out for a party or whatnot, you're not going to wear Jinkos?
No, never, ever.
Ever.
No. I guess I should have put that on my list of, nopes. that would have definitely been on there.
Well, I've got a whole roster of things, because this is literally one of the episodes I've been most excited to do, because this is right up my alley.
Yeah, so you're more of a fashionista than I am. I'm going off the top of my head. So I mean, there's again, Cavaricci was on my mind. You already talked about Cavaricci. I have another one that was super popular. Guess.
And that was Anna Nicole. It was like one of the best advertising campaigns in history.
Oh, Anna Nicole Smith. Yeah, that's right. She did. Yeah. Those were really popular. I would have assumed that they probably are still sold, and I'm probably very right. I don't know who's buying Guess jeans, but they were at one point. Like every girl had a pair of Guess jeans.
Oh, for sure.
And they would pair them with the goddamn LA Gear shoes.
I literally have LA Gear on my screen. Yes.
LA Gear was super popular.
Yeah, and then you had the double laces.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I dated a girl. That's what she wore. She had Guess jeans and LA Gear shoes. And that was her shtick.
Styling and profiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the most iconic sports moments in the last 30 years. I want to say I was like 12 years old, and I was watching the NBA slam dunk contest, and one of the players for the Boston Celtics, dribbles the ball out to midcourt. I didn't even know who this guy was, but I knew the shoes that he was wearing. When D Brown sets the ball down on the court and reaches over and pumps up his Reebok pumps.
Yeah.
And then proceeds to no-look dunk and win the entire slam dunk championship.
Yeah, Reebok pumps were bullshit, just like the ones that had the lights in the back. I can't remember what those were. What were those called? The ones that had the lights in the back?
Oh, man, I forget what it is.
Basically, they flickered like a taillight every time you walked.
I'll get you a pair.
I don't remember what they were called. I don't want a pair. And I don't want Reebok pumps either.
Oh, man, I actually collect Reebok pumps to this day. I scored one of my late night, like 2:45 a.m. internet purchases was a brand new pair of Michael Chang Reebok pumps off some dude in the Ukraine.
Shit.
Yeah, I've still never worn them, but they are crispy on my shelf.
Are they worth money?
It's like anything, it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? But Reebok has re-released those D Brown Omni pumps. And me and my buddy Keith, right when this is, I want to say 2021, right when they were re-releasing, I had my iPad, my iPhones. I was texting him, We had bots to buy them, and those shoes sold out, I want to say, in like less than a minute.
Yeah, that whole culture of sneakers, for collecting, it's just something I can't wrap my head around. I think we may have already had this conversation about.
We did.
Yeah. So, kudos to you in sneaker collecting. It's not something that I can grab a hold of for whatever reason.
But see, I mean, rocking the Omni pumps, it adds at least 3 feet to your vertical. You can no look dunk just like D Brown. I mean, it opens up a whole new world.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm gonna call bullshit, but I'm sure. If anything, it weighs you down. You lose a couple of feet vertical.
They do weigh like 5 pounds a
yeah.
piece. They're super clunky to wear. But anytime I do wear them, oh, dude, I get stopped probably every 25 feet. People know exactly what they are. Iconic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because you put on Michael Jordan's shoes doesn't mean you can play like Michael Jordan. No different than if you put on, I don't know, John Holmes's shoes, that all of a sudden you're going to end up with a 12-inch dick.
It's always something, man. Always something.
So I'll shoot one out to you that came and went is FUBU.
Hey, yes. And I still own some FUBU, man. That was good stuff.
Yeah.
For us, by us.
For us, by us. Yeah, it was I correct me if I'm wrong about this, but as I understand it, it was a direct response to Tommy Hilfiger.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So yeah. Tommy Hilfiger designs his line of clothing, and when he designed his clothing, he had a specific kind of New York high-end, want to enter that fashion world. And the clothes became super popular, and then all these rappers started wearing Hilfiger, and it became a whole hip-hop thing.
Yep.
And he made an offhand comment how he was upset that his clothes were being associated with hip hop, because that's not what that wasn't his his end
shtick,
game.
Yeah.
So people took that offensively, like he was saying he didn't want black people wearing his clothes. I don't think that's what he meant. I just think that when he had a goal of entering the New York fashion world and becoming a known designer, I think he was thinking more like Louis Vuitton
and like Ralph Lauren.
Yeah. And then suddenly the hip hop crowd just adopts his clothes, and now he's the hip hop clothing guy, right?
Exactly.
And Damon Johns, the Shark Tank guy, he's the one that founded FUBU, and that was the whole idea, like design something that's similar to what Hilfiger was doing, but it's for us, by us, not by some corny ass white dude that doesn't seem to appreciate the fact that he's making millions of dollars, and some of the biggest rappers on the planet are constantly endorsing his clothing and giving his clothing actual real relevance, right?
Yeah.
But and that lasted a number of years at best. It came and went pretty quick, right?
Like in blink of an eye. I had a Carolina blue FUBU tracksuit, and I thought I was like the coolest kid on the block. I mean, technically I was still in college and I was probably a giant dork, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, you know what? And kudos to Damon Johns for doing that, because he recognized an opportunity, and the clothes were really, really nice. Now I never owned any FUBU; it wasn't my style, but
it should be.
It was definitely. I love the way they looked, the colors, the designs were really, really, really cool. So yeah, and the for us by us thing, I dig that. I mean, more so than Nike, because Nike's Fubus, for us by Indian sweatshops.
Yep, that's true. Well, in FUBU, that was kind of like a new, cooler riff on remember Cross Colors, the brand, with let's see, who is Lisa Left Eye Lopes from
TLC.
Yeah, no, that was, but that was like one of those that didn't appeal to everyone. So when FUBU came out, and then Outkast had a clothing brand, and Sean John and all that kind of stuff, it blew open the niche.
Yeah.
And speaking of niches, growing up in like the late 80s, early 90s, like that was really like the beginning of skate surf culture. I still think TNC Surf Designs is cool.
Oh God, it's been a while since I heard that name.
Right?
Did I own any TNC? I know I did.
They had that yin yang symbol, and there's like the different. There's the surf gorilla. There is the dude with the face shield and all that. Yeah.
I mean, they even made an NES video game.
I played it. I had it.
It's actually a really good game. Yeah. I know that, because all my family was from Southern California, and I lived in LA prior to high school. And so that would have been like 87, 88,
Yeah, that's
somewhere in
about
there.
right. Mm-hmm.
And I know I had some TNC surf design clothes because everybody wore that shit, especially in SoCal.
For sure.
Yeah,
For
but
sure.
I'll even take it further back than that. If you remember OP, Ocean
I
Pacific.
I do. But that was with the Hobie Cats.
Yeah, and I think I might be wrong about this, but I feel like OP was like the poor man's version of like a
Yes.
TNC. Like if you
Yes.
couldn't afford the TNC, you got yourself some OP.
Yeah, growing up, our family didn't have any money, and so it was like I wanted the TNC. The cool kids at school had TNC, but yeah, I remember rocking the Hobie Cat.
Yeah.
and getting away with some OP.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?
Leave a like on the video. I know you're enjoying this. Can you shut up?
The internet's answer to a question that was never asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Yeah. The other thing that popped in my head, and I remember this because of a kid when I was in junior high had gotten a pair of these shoes, and for at least 4 months was just ragging on everybody else's shoes because he was the one that had these shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how expensive they were. They couldn't have been that expensive, but either they were just new enough, maybe they were selling out. I don't know. But I remember him specifically ragging. I had a pair of just plain white Reeboks. I remember him shitting on me, calling me poor or whatever, that typical insult
Right.
because of the shoes I was wearing. And he was sporting British Knights.
Yes.
VKs,
Yes, BKs. That was those to come back for about 50 days during COVID, and then I think they ran out of money or something. But
Yeah, the design I thought was ugly.
terrible.
And even when I was a kid, when something that ugly might appeal to me because I was like 12 or 13. No, they were ugly back then, and they're still ugly today.
I'm gonna actually bookmark that on my computer. I'm gonna try and track a pair down.
Like the original BKs?
The originals. I think when you and I finally release our follow-up to our debut album, like that should be the cover art, us rocking British Knights.
I'd actually wear a pair of BKs. I'd do
For
that.
sure, man. Yeah, you would be the coolest kid on the block.
Would be wearing any of those goddamn Jankos.
Hey, they might work together.
No, I'm not.
The Jankos, you might not see the British Knights.
The only thing that works with Janko have to be clown shoes because otherwise you would never see the shoe. So your shoe has to be at least 14, 15, 16, 17 inches long so they stick out.
So good. So good. Either that or a pair of rollerblades with your Jankos.
Yeah, no.
And well, speaking of shoes, so I never wasn't coordinated enough to actually skateboard, but Airwalks, right when they first came out,
Yeah,
like those
I owned Airwalks.
Airwalks and like Jimmy Z's.
Yeah. It's sort of the answer to Vans and what were I'm drawing a blank. What were the slip-on? Were those Vans too? They're real popular.
Van slip-ons, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And the popular one was like the checkerboard one. Okay, so those are Vans.
Yep.
All right, because I owned a pair of like newer Vans that were more like a shoe, and I did have a pair of Airwalks. I must have gotten sucked into that. So it would have been at some point in the early '90s.
Yes, that's about right.
I think a lot of the grunge bands, the Seattle types were sporting Vans or Airwalks, and I did buy a pair of Airwalks. I do remember doing that.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the thing. They were reasonably priced. They were, you could go to, again, our family didn't have money. You could go to like Mervyn's or Payless shoes where they had little handcuffs on the shoes, and your mom would make you put them on and be like, well, now walk. And you're like, I can't walk with my shoes handcuffed together. Well, here's another funny one, and this isn't more in the line of a fad. Do you remember when people would just wear bicycle shorts, like spandex shorts?
Yeah, still do. I think that's not that uncommon.
But just by themselves.
Yeah.
And but like dudes would do that.
Yeah, I recall this. This would have been probably like the early 90s.
Early 90s.
I'm thinking more the early 2000s, but
well, with the crowd.
No. You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of the band Living Color. They wore
the
body
back dancers. Yeah.
They would wear the body glove suits and then the shorts. those. I don't even know what they made of, lycra or something.
Lycra,
Some
yeah.
bullshit.
it's like if you're not wearing, or if you're not on the Tour de France, you can just walk around in that same outfit.
Right. Yeah. No, I would never. Nothing like that.
Do you remember Zubaz pants?
No, I don't.
They're like the bodybuilder type pants. They're like super baggy. They'd have like a crazy, usually a pattern on them, like tiny at the top, tapered towards the bottom, but quasi MC Hammer-ish.
No, this is not drawing any kind of memory for me.
Really?
No.
This is like one of those Keystone memories.
Yeah, I must have been asleep or really high on drugs. There's a period of time where I don't think I was paying attention to much of anything other than trying to go from day to day.
These are the type of pants you want to be buried in.
No.
Zubaz.
No. I'll give you one though that was real popular for like just the hottest second, and it was the shoe that I think people, at least some people, look at it and go like, "Wow, super cool." But it's the kind of shoe that got your lunch money taken from you every day if you wore these fucking shoes. Kangaroos.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
You could put your money in.
You
them.
could put the money in it. You could put,
condom in it.
You could put drugs. You could do. It was like the ultimate hideaway pouch. You know, those made a comeback too.
Oh, no, they couldn't have.
They did. And I think they're made out of a company in Taiwan or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were real popular when I was, I don't know, 10, 11. So this would have been like in mid 80s.
And they just called them Ruse. R-O-O-S.
Yeah, the Ruse.
Ruse.
Yeah. So they're a shoe with a zipper pouch on the side, and for whatever reason, every geek and nerd thought that was like the coolest shit.
Mm-hmm.
So they bought them up, and then you went to school, and you got your ass kicked, and they unzipped your shoe and took your lunch money.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
Right? I was like,
sums it up. Yep. And yeah, there is a company that I don't. Those shoes like came and went in a hot minute because nobody wants to buy something like that.
Yeah, it seemed like a good idea, I guess, at the time. And I'm not going to comment on, mass marketing and creation of a product like the kangaroo shoes. But for some reason, again, when I was a kid, I thought it was super cool. But I was also a super geeky ass little kid. So
they had fun colors though. Like they were like bright colors, contrasting colors. So they had their whole thing. You know, one of the fashion markets where they try and create a niche where there doesn't need to be one was Heelys.
School me. I'm not. It sounds vaguely familiar.
Heelys are like I don't really call it a skate shoe. They're wide and they're clunky, but they've got a built-in roller skate wheel in the back of them.
Yeah, I remember those.
And you
kind of dumb idea.
You kind of click your heels like you're Dorothy or something, and the wheel pops down. And
that's dumb.
You can travel down the sidewalk.
Stupid.
Yeah.
So another piece of clothing that came and went. I'm going to go with Skechers shoes.
Did you know that the owner and predecessor of Skechers shoes was LA Gear?
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows you what I know about shoes. I defer to the master.
One garbage shoe company to another garbage shoe company.
Well, what I find interesting about Skechers was I do own, most of my shoes are Converse, old school Chuck Taylors, but I do always own mostly skate shoes, straight white, have a specific style that I like. And I remember, this is probably 20 years ago, I found a pair of Skechers, and I'd never heard of them. But I know they were quasi-popular and a popular skate shoe. So I bought a pair, and I liked them. I thought they were great. But just over time, the popularity just sort of just dissipated to nothing. And now they're advertised as being kind of old man shoes.
Yeah, my father-in-law is in his late 70s, and that's all he wears, Skechers.
Yeah. I mean, the last commercial I saw was with Howie Long, former football player, and that's the whole shtick of the commercial. He's like, I think Howie Long is probably in his late 50s, early 60s, and he's just like, my Skechers slip-ons, they're super comfortable. I'm like, ooh, these went from like hardcore skate shoes to old man ass shoes.
Did he use the word orthotics?
He might have. I can't remember.
Well, on a cooler note, I thought one of the best advertising campaigns. This goes back to the early 90s. And these guys still exist. They're still banging. They're still putting out great material. But the early advertising for Oakley.
Fucking Oakley.
Yeah, remember his thermonuclear protection?
Right. Oh my God, the glasses were so ugly. They were popular.
Oh man, like Brian the Boz.
Yeah, Brian Bosworth wore those.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, there's still sunglasses. People don't know what Oakleys are. You can look them up, but those are still fairly popular style.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Wide lens,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, not quite. There's like the Pit Viper style, which that has definitely had a resurgence. But when you think of any like high performance athletes, marathoners, cyclists, Oakley has great material. But yeah, when they first came out though, that was when like purple and turquoises were like the main colors. And then they would have like the cool black backdrop with like fluorescent green Oakley thermonuclear protection.
Yeah.
And just wearing that name had cachet.
Yeah, it's interesting that I have an Oakley story. I never liked Oakley. I never owned a pair of Oakleys. Well, that's not true. This is where the story comes from. I was walking home from school one day, and I found a pair of Oakley frog skins on the ground. Yeah. And they were brown. They weren't a fancy, crazy, weird fluorescent color. And I had never seen the frog skins. They look more like regular glasses. And so I picked them up. I'm like, oh, these are Oakley glasses. Oh, this is kind of dope. And I wore them for maybe like 2 weeks. And I remember people giving me love for them. Like, oh, dude, you got a pair of Oakleys. And I'm like, yeah, I found them. Right? I didn't even brag properly. Like, oh yeah, I got that kind of money. I'm going to buy some Oakleys. So I didn't really care for them. And at the time, I don't think I was really wearing sunglasses. And I think if I was wearing sunglasses, I was wearing mostly aviator style. Because again, I was emulating a lot of the hard rock people that I looked up to, your Axl Roses and Slash and things like that. Those guys wore, the mirrored aviator style glasses.
White Snake.
Yeah, sure. We'll go with White Snake. Actually, they're a good band. I have my issues with White Snake, but nonetheless. So this kid Alex that I knew, Alex Dobbs, and if you're, I pray to God that you're still alive and you're listening to this podcast. He was all about it. He was kind of a surfer kind of guy, and he's just like, dude, can I buy them off? You don't want them, I'll buy them off you. And I said, I'll sell them to you for like $20. I think that's what the deal was. And being the idiot that I am, I'm like, well, here, just take them, because I didn't want them. And I never got my $20. So Alex, you fucking owe me $20. I want my $20.
It's such a good story. Such a good story. Well, another thing is super nostalgic, and I do collect these as well. Remember starter jackets?
Oh God, those were super popular.
Yeah, the satin starter jackets. They've gone through a bunch of iterations, but that's there's nothing more classic when you have sports and your actual team that you would rock.
Yeah, I remember wanting a starter jacket when I was like in the 6th grade, 7th grade. I was a big Raiders fan, and my mother couldn't afford one because I think at the time, so this is like 1986, I think they were like $120, $130 for one of those jackets.
Yep.
And it was the classic style that would have, the Raider shield on the front and then in block letters in the back, across Raiders. And my mother ended up buying me some knockoff version of that, and it was real close to a starter jacket. It had Raiders across the back, just like the starter jacket. On the front, it had the helmet with, the emblem, not just the emblem by itself. And I just loved that jacket. And at the time, I don't think I understood it wasn't a starter jacket, but the jacket was so dope, like it didn't matter to me. And I was never into that kind of thing anyways. But I remember going to school and getting quasi-teased by a couple of kids saying like, oh, you got like a knockoff starter jacket? And it didn't bother me as much because it was like, this is a dope-ass jacket. I don't care who the fuck made it, right? But yeah, if you weren't wearing starter, I think you were, you got is that the swamp meat version or whatever?
Well, right about like 1990 though, there was the up and coming brand Apex One.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember like I was a huge Deion Sanders fan when he got drafted out of Florida State by the Atlanta Falcons. So
yeah.
Even though I was a diehard Niners fan, all of a sudden I was all about the Atlanta Falcons. So I remember I had saved up my money, and my mom drove us like an hour and a half to a store, because I was also to find a Atlanta Falcons Apex jacket was kind of a big deal. And I still have that jacket in my closet to this day, and it is still primo mint condition.
Wow.
It's very rare that I ever wear it, but when I do, people like, dude, that is the throwback of throwbacks.
It's like, how many fucking closets do you have, Joe?
A small house, lots of cool stuff.
You organize it well. I've been to your house at least twice, I think twice. And I'm amazed at the setup that you have. And It's very spacious for the amount of stuff that you have. You are a very organized person.
Feng shui, man.
Yeah, you got everything, and it's exactly where it needs to be.
You know the look that needs to make a comeback, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Nylon windsuits.
Okay, well here's my first thought. What the hell is a nylon windsuit?
Where it's basically like a tracksuit, but it's one of those swishy ones when you like walk along and they shh, 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 shh.
Was that ever a thing? I just know tracksuits from watching a bunch of mafia films.
Yeah, nylon windsuits. That was definitely
and hanging out with rich Indians.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. But that's like a early mid '90s type of deal.
Yeah, I don't recall that. I mean, I remember tracksuits, and I mean they're still around. But there was a point I remember
windsuits
in the '90s where they were pretty popular. People seem to be popping around constantly with tracksuits on. I never really understood tracksuits, so I never had one, even though I'm Italian, right?
I can totally hook you up, man. Totally hook you up.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous.
What about? Do you remember the brand? And these guys are still around, but it was. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, Body Glove.
Wow, yeah. Well,
surf culture.
Yeah, I mean, massive. I just said earlier about Living Color, the band, they all wore Body Glove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was that whole surf culture. It was kind of a weird thing because it wasn't just surfing. It was also just a general kind of workout kind of thing. If you were athletic, you were wearing body
I think
glove.
It was the first and only time that a company has ever brought neoprene into the mainstream.
Yeah, it was popular, and then the designs I thought were ugly, but nonetheless, it was huge.
Yeah, it had that was back in the fluorescent color days.
Yeah, God, yeah, the colors that they had were outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an offshoot of the 1980s female workout outfits. Those
pretty much
tight,
yeah.
Bright colored. Like it always fascinated me. If you ever look at anybody that doesn't know, they should look this up. The mid 80s female workout outfits were these tight, kind of bodysuits. Right, and they're like one piece, and I guess it would be tantamount to close, almost like a one piece, swimsuit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had that kind of style going on, but they always had belts around their waist. Like,
yes.
what the fuck you holding up? Like you're not wearing pants. Why is there a belt on this thing?
And those leotards were like slingshots.
Yeah,
remember that? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Body Glove to me was just the next wave of like kind of male version leotards. I don't know. It was a ridiculous style. It was popular though. People were sporting that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I would have never put that shit on, but
it's
me.
The first trade I ever did was, I had to have been 6 years old. I traded away a bunch of my Garbage Pail Kids cards for a Body Glove fanny pack.
Oh, you got ripped off.
I don't think I did, man.
No, Garbage Pail Kids are worth money. Fanny packs are a joke.
Yeah, I understand that now, 40-something years later. But at least at the time, I'd have my Body Glove fanny pack with my Walkman and my BMX bike, and I thought I was the coolest.
Yeah, well, you were, man. You were sporting everything. That was the uniform. That made you cool right there.
Yeah, not so much though. Not so much.
The one thing that I want to bring up is something recent. Surprisingly, on this podcast, we don't talk about too many recent topics, but when we're talking about fashion, how things come and go, and maybe come back later, and then you look back at the stuff and how ridiculous it was. Forever 21 just filed for bankruptcy.
Ooh.
And they're completely shutting down every store. So that should tell you something it should tell you something about fashion, because I would say, 15 years ago, Forever 21 was the hottest spot. I mean,
for sure.
Yeah.
That was like your shopping center anchor.
Yeah, for sure. And they're gone now. And that's all it takes is, I guess changing taste, different styles, can't keep up. I know nothing about Forever 21. Just by the name alone, my assumption was it was obviously designed for younger people and probably the hippest and coolest clothes. I would assume if it's not all female, it's largely geared towards females.
Yes. Well, this is on the same thing as Macy's is closing a bunch of their stores.
Yeah, but Macy's is not strictly a clothing store. I mean, they have, I guess they're mostly a clothing store, but they have everything kind of at a Macy's. Forever 21, to me, is like I'm waiting for Anthropology to go under at some point. Are they going to run their course where it's it's no longer cool to wear Anthropology? And I mean, Anthropology is stupid expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, the one thing I enjoyed about the topic for today's podcast is I have very fond memories of all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I do look forward to either them making their own comeback or you and I actually bringing them back?
Yeah, well, I see that's the problem. I'm not the fashion guy. I like this episode simply because I can talk about things I remember and then get to see it kind of in hindsight, because you are somebody that was definitely more dialed into that kind of thing. I spent most of my life wearing reasonably priced clothes, and anytime there was a kind of a new fashion, even if I liked it, I typically didn't dive into it because it was expensive, and I felt comfortable wearing the shit that I wear, and I feel comfortable right now wearing the shit that I wear. Some of it's nice, some of it's basic, and I just roll with that. I'm not a guy that's going to be buying name brand hot new styles and designers. Just not going to be me. But it's fun definitely to talk about this stuff, because again, you get sort of the hindsight of it and remember people's attitudes and how they thought about something.
For sure.
And 20, 30 years later looking back going like, oh God, what a ridiculous thing you were into.
And I'm on the other end of that spectrum, where I have made lots of very poor financial decisions in buying certain clothing items. The funny thing about that, though, is I still have like 90% of it all like in my closet or in bins or somewhere. And so I can pull things out, 30 years later, and it's still fresh and cool, at least in my mind.
Right. And if you still have it, it wasn't a waste of money.
That's a fact, man. That is a fact.
I have an important announcement for you, so stay tuned.
Yo, that's some next level shit, bruh.
So you got me. Big deal.
The internet's answer to a question no one asked. The Tilted Table with Sean and Joe.
Folks, thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Tilted Table, the internet's answer to a question that no one asked. I am Sean Landon Clark.
And I am Joey Joe, the Fracky Mac.
And you can catch us on all social media platforms at The Tilted Table 1. Please like, subscribe, hit bells, punch your computer.
Do the thing.
Do the thing.
Stay G'd up from the feet up, man, because pimping ain't easy.
It never is, especially when you're dealing with the internet.
That's a fact, man. We out.
Bye.